original intent was that we would own the park when it was paid off. The city has changed that tune quite a bit over the years.
The city has paid nothing for this piece of property. The residents have paid for everything. Initially, our name was supposed to be on the title. Somewhere in the paperwork, it got lost and the city took title.
Currently, with a little more than $1 million left to pay on the loan, the city of Novato is the legal owner of the park and considers itself to be the residents' landlord.
In today's video, I want you guys to start off by picturing this scenario. You have decided that you're going to purchase your first home. You found the perfect spot. You want to lay roots down because you know you're going to be there for the foreseeable future. You have your down payment. You have an income that supports this home purchase. Everything seems all good. However, when you go to the bank, they tell you, you know what? We would love to give you this loan. We understand that your income can support this loan. We appreciate your debt to income ratio, all that good stuff, but we're not going to be able to give this to you unless you bring on a cosigner. Now, you have no friends. You have no family. You're a sad sack lonely person who spends all of his time watching videos on the internet.com. So you go call up Uncle Sean over here at the Actual Justice Warrior channel. You pitch me this scenario. I look at your financials and I decide that I'm going to co-sign the loan for you. I decided that me, AJW, most gracious man in the history of the world, has got your back, and 28 years later, into you making each and every payment on this loan, you end up discovering that in reality, I did not co-sign the loan. In actuality, what I did was put my name on the loan, and even though I paid absolutely nothing, and you're 28 years into this 30-year mortgage, by the end of it, I will own the property in its entirety. Now, of course, I'm going to say this was just a mistake. I'm going to say, you know what? Something got a little bit messed up on the paperwork right there. And theoretically, what I would do is sign over the house to you, because obviously, if I didn't, this would be the most criminal scam in the history of America. Super easy to prove, and I would be in jail. Easy fix, no big deal. You made the payments, you get the property. There was some kind of mix up back in the 90s. We're going to resolve it. Let us move on with our lives. Well, you would think it would be easy. You would think it would be simple, but it turns out the city council over at Navato, California did this very same thing to a bunch of senior citizens who wanted to buy their own trailer park, made 28 years worth of payments totaling around $18 million. And now the city is not only not giving them their property that they already paid for, they're also expecting them to come up with a new $25 million in order to buy it all over again directly from the city, who is about to assume ownership of the whole thing. Yes, this is absolute madness. Yes, this is insane. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who makes the payments on this channel that I co-signed over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
From the street, just about everything indicates the Marin Valley Mobile Country Club to be private property, but it's not. The 319-unit mobile home complex is officially owned by the city of Novato. When the residents tried to buy the land in 1997, somehow the city, which co-signed the loan, ended up as the only name on the documents.
So as you guys just saw for yourselves from this local news segment, which by the way did an absolutely excellent job breaking down this particular story and will be linked in the description in full, this all boils down to a quirk in the contract that essentially removed the people who are actually paying for the mortgage from said contract back in 1997, and now $20 million in, these 319 should-be homeowners are basically subjects of the city of Navato, and they didn't even realize that this was going to be the case. In fact, they were making their payments under the assumption that they were going to be able to own this, because when you take out a mortgage on a property and make the payments for 28 years, presumably you're doing so in order to own said property. But of course, Novato thinks different. Novato thinks it's perfectly fine to scam senior citizens in your area, and that is exactly what went down in this community. So 319 would-be homeowners are now, I guess, renters, are now subjects to the city of Novato, and it doesn't appear the city has any interest in rectifying this situation.
For more than 20 years, Gloria Gilbert's monthly payment has gone toward buying property for the city. Was it your understanding that the people here were going to eventually own this property?
Yes. And I was involved in the effort back in the late 90s, early 2000s to get the city to sell the park to us, and they refused to do it.
City of Novato, what the hell are you doing? Give this lady her home. What are you thinking that this is appropriate for you to do to your own tax base, who obviously bought in under the understanding that they would of course become homeowners? Why would you do this? Why would you not recognize your error, other than the fact that you think it's kind of funny that these people thought they were paying a mortgage, but in reality they were actually paying extra taxes to the city without knowing it, and now you think, well, they're old, so they don't matter, they'll be dead anyway, we can shove them off this land, and instead of having something for their kids to inherit, we now have an asset that we could ruin because we're a horrible city in a disgusting state like the state of California. And again, I will bring you the excerpts from the contract to the local news segment, and I will explain why this is so crucial.
City staff says they can find no documents that show the property would transfer to the residents, while at the same time admitting that the city has paid nothing to acquire the land. On Tuesday night, the residents took their frustrations to the city council.
Residents have paid for everything since 1997, including close to 18 million in loans and bonds and interests, with the understanding that the land would ultimately be ours in 2027.
So look, I know somebody in the comments is going to say, well, they should have checked the paperwork, they should have dotted their I's and crossed their T's, they should have assumed that the city was going to put themselves in place of the buyer and not just act as a co-signer, as was agreed back in 1997, and they're just out of luck, out of $18 million, and that's something that these elderly people just have to deal with, and it's a life lesson that they could take with them to the grave, because again, this is largely senior citizens. But the thing is, that is a childish understanding of how contract law works in the United States of America. I recently helped my wife study for the bar exam, and this is something that we went over repeatedly, and one of the things that I discovered in said bar exam is that contracts have to have an actual exchange of value for them to be valid. So if you end up having somebody perform a service for you, like, you know, paint the front of your house or whatever, you are obligated to pay that person. You can't just have them paint the front of your house and then say, oh, well, you don't get any money. You didn't read in the fine print that you thought you were going to get, you know, I don't know, $5,000. But in reality, I actually am giving you absolutely nothing. Like, that is not how a contract works. That is not an enforceable contract. And if these were private parties, that would be an invalid contract. A judge would be able to review it and make a determination. And more likely than not, the property would revert to the person who paid the entirety of the mortgage, because typically when you pay the entirety of the mortgage, you get the property, not somebody else.
We recognize that we need to be responsible for our own future and not rely on a handshake agreement. We cannot rely on the city to keep our best interest as a priority.
So it makes me genuinely sad to see these elderly people say, oh, well, I guess it's kind of our fault because we were operating under a handshake agreement. But in reality, it appears that this is anything but a handshake agreement. Again, these people are getting bills for the mortgage individually at the different various trailers at this particular complex under the impression that they would be paying off the mortgage to own said trailer. So they are operating financially and under all the assumptions that they are to own this property. The city is not paying absolutely anything because, again, they were just a co-signer on this particular loan. So it doesn't make any sense for them to assume anything to the contrary. It just turns out that according to the paperwork that they have now, nearly 30 years later, oh, look, it turns out you weren't on it. So, well, too bad for you. Sad day. The city is going to own this place in a couple of years, and who knows what we'll do with the new property that us over at the city has acquired.
The issue was not on the council's agenda, so they could only sit and listen, but they did talk about it at a meeting 2 years earlier when the residents were again trying to negotiate a purchase from the city. At the meeting, Councilmember Pat Eklund, who was mayor at the time of the original sale in 1997, suggested that they consider transferring ownership to the park residents.
Now look, the residents have made their case to the city council over and over again, and in fact, you actually have the former mayor, the person who was in office at the time that this agreement was set up, who acknowledges the way that this should have been set up on paper and how she wants the city council to do the right thing and transfer ownership to the seniors. Again, this is sensible in my humblest of humble opinions as somebody who's not a lawyer, the basis of contract law would indicate that this should be the outcome. However, this does not appear to be a unanimous opinion, anything but, and in fact, you have people on the council that are militating against this transfer. They don't want the seniors to own the place. They want them to buy it again.
Transferring ownership, that just, I can't agree with that. From a legal standpoint, I think that could be considered a gift of public funds. I can't imagine how the rest of the community would feel if we transferred ownership.
So this is another former mayor of this particular town called Susan Warnick, and typically I don't like to go after people on a deep level. I don't like to build up hate and animosity towards them, but I need to be 100% clear, honest, and open with all of you guys out there in the audience. I hate this woman. I absolutely despise her. What she's saying is absolutely disgusting, and the audacity of her to call this a gift of public funds when the public funds went towards this in no way, shape, or form is absurd in every possible way. In addition to that, she's like, how will the rest of the residents of this town feel if we just give this property away? You know, the property that's already been paid for by the people who want to receive the property. It's unfair to the other taxpayers who contributed absolutely nothing to this that we don't keep this and extort them. Essentially, what this woman's position is that the homeowners or the would-be homeowners need to buy it again. And also, they can't buy it again under the original price of around $20 million because guess what? That was 30 years ago. Price gone up. They have to pay current market value in order to purchase this again. And by the way, maybe she wants to co-sign the loan, wink, wink, by the city so that they could trap them in this absolute disaster once more. And if you think I'm exaggerating about this, Warnick actually hired a spokesperson in order to make her case to the seniors of what she wants them to do.
Transferring ownership, that just, I can't agree with that. From a legal standpoint, I think that could be considered a gift of public funds. I can't imagine how the rest of the community would feel if we transferred ownership.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And honestly, shame on Anna Kasparian for taking that job and working for Warnick, demanding money from these elderly people.
There's no gift of public funds because not a penny of public funds has been put into the ownership of Marin Valley.
The former mayor is 100% right there. Again, Susan Warnock, the devil in this situation, make no mistake about it. But regardless of that, these elderly people are willing to put up another $20 million, which, by the way, would make the total $40 million in order to get this. And if you think I was joking about them appraising the property and telling them they're not going to take a penny less than the appraised value, they actually outright stated throughout the course of this segment.
Nevertheless, the park residents have accepted the situation and are working to buy the property for a second time, this time offering the city $20 million. But the city has refused. Their appraisal lists the value of the property at $26 million, and they say they will not accept less than that.
Can you honestly say that this is good faith negotiations? So much work went into putting that proposal for you, for your consideration.
Take the $20 million. Everyone wins. Have the attorneys paper it up, and you can get back to city business.
You ever see those videos of people who say that they're paying their student loans based on the minimum payment, but it's nowhere near touching the interest, so they actually owe more 5 years in than they started out with? Well, this is not exactly that same thing, but it definitely feels like it, because these elderly people have put in, over the course of nearly 30 years, $20 million into owning this particular property, and now they're being told, oh, guess what? You now owe the city, who put in absolutely nothing, $26 million more. Good luck, elderly people. Maybe your grandkids will be able to own this at some point in time after the city stops cycling through these scams, and it's absolutely shameful. I don't know why these elderly residents aren't hiring an attorney in order to sue the city, because make no mistake about it, this is an absolute travesty of justice. And by the way, I'm actually going to call on you guys out there in the audience to contact the representatives of the Novato City Council. I want you to put pressure pressure on them. Don't be rude or anything of the sort, but let them know that you're outraged. Email them, do whatever you got to do, because they need to give these people their homes. These people need their homes. They deserve their homes. They paid for it, and it is not the property of the Novato City Council. Contact the representatives over there. Let them know we are not going to forget this, and we are in no way, shape, or form going to let these absolute scumbags put these people on another 30-year mortgage for $26 million. And the fact that these people who put nothing into this property have the audacity to spit upon a $20 million offer, even though they should be having this property in just 2 years anyway, based on what they already put in, is insane. It's crazy. It's entitled behavior. And the fact that that woman, Susan Warnick, called this a gift of public funds that would be a travesty for the other taxpayers who put nothing into this is madness to a scale that I have not seen in a very long time.
It seems like the residents have every reason to be angry, but instead of shouting, they ended the meeting with a song.
We were promised when the loan was paid, the park would be our own. That's our home. That's our home.
Listen, I hope when you guys were watching this, you felt the level of rage that I did when I first discovered this story, because these elderly people are so sweet. They come in and they sing a hymn at the end of this. They're trying to get the city to take $20 million more from them in order to get the property. They're not yelling, they're not screaming, even though they absolutely have every right to. These are supposedly their representatives. These people on the city council allegedly work for them, but in reality, they ran a scam that is so ridiculous on senior citizens, you'd expect an Indian telemarketer to be behind it.
In all the years that I was here and things seemed to be going along fine, I would say, okay, it looks like everything, but in the back of my head, I'm saying we're owned by politicians. What could not go wrong?
So yeah, absolutely love the fact that these people are so wholesome. They seem like great, wonderful elderly people, but the fact of the matter is they got scammed. They got ripped off. They should be enraged, and somebody needs to represent them in a lawsuit against the city, because what the city is doing right here is depraved, immoral, inhumane, and disgusting. Again, a 30-year mortgage to buy the same property that you almost finished buying the first time because the city cheated you out of it. Insane, absurd, not about that life. We need to fight back against this. So go to the links in the description in this video, go to the contact forms, and contact these members of the city council and tell them you want them to give these elderly people their homes because they deserve it. The city paid absolutely nothing towards it, and we are not going to accept this outcome. We're not going to accept this option. We are going to fight back against it. We're going to stand up for these people who, by the way, again, are willing to deal with the fact that they got scammed and move forward. But you know what? Those terms are not acceptable to me. The city wants to pull a Darth Vader and say, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. Absolutely not. They need to be pressured into doing the right thing, because that's the only way that they're going to do it. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the city of Novato robbing senior citizens of their homes. Till next time.